Greetings guys, this is a pragmatically oriented video. I'm going to be talking about Ashley Madison and online dating scams in general. Many of you have already heard about the Ashley Madison affair. That is Ashley Madison, a website that had offered people the opportunity for extramarital affairs for a price, of course, monthly contribution, and that it was hacked and a lot of people's names got out. And several men have even, in the wake of this, committed suicide. Now, according to a Washington Post article, and admittedly this article does have a feminist skew to it, and what else can you expect from a major American newspaper? For example, adult dating hookup sites with a serious problem, though. Picture says, while they have no problem attracting interesting guys, they absolutely bomb when it comes to women. More on this in a bit. Some of that has to do with openly misogynist marketing, whatever that means. Some of it relates to women's well-conditioned social and sexual roles, and more on that. And much of it has to do with the fact that being a rare woman on a site full of desperate, oversexed, uninhibited dudes is objectively terrible. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, there's certainly a slant to it, but according to this article, and there are links in the article itself, the article will be posted in the low bar, there is evidence to suggest that Ashley Madison faked numerous female profiles. Not just that, but many pay to join or pay to be a member dating sites fake numerous profiles. That is, the female profiles. This is in direct contradiction to some of the claims made by the founder, or the CEO, Noel Biederman. Now, the site and this whole debacle in and of itself is reasonably interesting. Hacked extramarital affair side shows just how prominent it is. But I really want to focus here on the gender dynamics. And the goal of this video is not some sort of profound offering of insight and wisdom. Much of this is known, but rather some very pragmatic advice and just a train of thought to men who are still entertaining thoughts of online dating and what have you. Now, according to the sources cited in this article, I have no reason to not believe the sources. People who've worked in the industry say that many sites, particularly the sites that require monthly contributions, payments to retain membership, fake profiles, and specifically fake numerous female profiles. But even as this feminist writer implied, women don't really have a reason to be on these kinds of sites. Now, this is pretty obvious. A reasonably attractive, reasonably young woman would not have any issue. First, let's talk about the extramarital affair thing. Women are notoriously better at covering their tracks when it comes to extramarital affairs than are men. I'll be posting some links in the low bar to discussions about this. But yeah, women and men have just about cheating parity. In fact, there are some studies that suggest that women cheat more often. They're just better at hiding it, and women admit this. So given the fact that women have a historical track record of being better at hiding these things, it's very unlikely that they would go onto a website where they have to produce credit card information, names, and so on, and then expose potentially themselves to scrutiny by anyone, even before the hack. This in of itself makes the claim that there was some sort of appropriate ratio of men to women on this site pretty dubious. But the problem here in general is that women in this regard don't have a need for such sites. And even quote-unquote normal pay-to-date sites, I can't think of any since I haven't done that sort of thing in years. It's claimed here, according to people who work in the industry, that people have to conjure up fake profiles. People will be hired, Eastern European women, to write some things and offer up their photos as clickbait, essentially. And why? In order to keep men subscribed and keep those monthly contributions and payments going. Women do their roles, their sexual roles, as the writer actually correctly pointed out. They don't need to go on these sorts of sites. Particularly for an extramarital affair. If an attractive, not so old married woman wants to have an affair, it probably isn't too hard for her to find one. She needs to be careful, obviously, and women tend to be careful about that in covering their tracks and remaining hidden. And if a woman wants a date who is reasonably attractive and reasonably young, likewise, this is not an issue. So it's pretty obvious that sites like this are just a lot of fakery, and even more conventional dating sites are a lot of fakery as well. And even sites that don't require payments, for example. I distinctly remember several cases years and years ago, when I still did online dating, the mid 2000s or maybe some of the late 2000s, encountering fake profiles. I had one issue where it was go as far as to have phone conversations, presumably with an imaginary person. The person never showed up to a date. And these experiences were not singular to me. I spoke to other men who had similar experiences. So it basically casts a lot of doubt on the idea that many women are on these dating sites. I'm not familiar with all of them. I know Plenty of Fish is supposedly reputable, whatever. But in many cases, if a woman is attractive and young, relatively young, why on earth would she be on a dating site? It doesn't make any sense. And you combine that with the sparsity of information offered usually, and most of the time I suspect these profiles are just fakes. They're just clickbait. They're just there to keep men going and interested. And let's not forget, this isn't just about monthly contributions. This is also about just traffic. Men almost certainly would be trafficking dating sites or extramarital sites more than women. In the latter case, because men are just worse at covering their tracks when it comes to these sorts of things. In the former case, because men need to make more effort when it comes to sexual access and dating than women do. That's just a universal. It's the way it is. That's unlikely to change anytime soon. So the moral of this story is to be extremely cautious. If you're still a guy, a MGTOW-minded guy who likes to date, and there's nothing wrong with that, I'll say that for the 10 millionth time. If you want to date, go ahead. Probably the best thing to do is absolutely avoid the paid sites where you're just wasting money, unless you've had some fantastic results. I can't speak to that, but maybe you had those results, because anecdotally, I've experienced lots of fakery, fake profiles, spoken to men who've experienced a lot of that. And like I said, embedded in the article are links to people who've worked in the industry saying that their job, at least in part, was to create fake profiles for men to click on as clickbait, because women, they don't need this sort of thing. It's just not necessary for them. And even on sites that are not quite paid to remain a member, they still require traffic and clicks, and the majority of the people there are men. Men are always on the lookout either for sex or relationships in a way that women aren't, particularly women in their prime or even in their early 30s. A woman arguably still might not need that sort of site. Probably the only legitimate women who are on sites like that are single mothers in general, and older women who just don't really get access. Remember what C.S. MGTOW had said when he talked about Tinder, the Tinder application, that the older the women tend to be, the more explicit they are, the more they show, the more they're willing to sort of just put forth their goods, if you want to call it that, because they're past the wall or getting close to the wall and are just used up. Their sexual marketplace value is decreased and depreciated enormously, and so they have to make up for it by basically willingness to display certain things and willingness to do things, whereas younger women don't have to do that. I would suspect it's the same principle when it comes to dating sites as in general, that young, attractive women probably, no doubt they exist on these dating sites, but they're probably the minority, and many, many of them are fake. According to this article, and then the links embedded in the article, people will literally be hired to create fake profiles, put in pics, just so men can message them just to keep the cycle going, and in the best case scenario, just to keep traffic on the site going. So if you're a MGTOW-minded man that enjoys dating, then it's probably the best advice is to avoid these sorts of online dating sites because of the scam potential, because of the waste of time. And absolutely, I don't think I could recommend this enough. Do not spend money on a site like that. You're better off spending money on a good meal or something like that, because the chances that the profiles there are legitimate and real seem increasingly slim when you look at the actual evidence and some of the things that people who work in the industry say and claim. No doubt some are, but it just seems like a colossal waste of time given the tendency towards scamming. And as more details are released from the Ashley Madison debacle and the hacking affair, then it's becoming very clear that there's a lack of transparency in what's actually going on and a lot of scamming going on in general. So a word to the wise: if you like dating as a MGTOW-minded man, you probably should not be involved in sites like that. Well, extramarital ones, that's kind of goes without saying. And I don't think MGTOW-minded men would do something that stupid or pay for sites, and I don't think MGTOW-minded men would do something that stupid either. But just be extra cautious if you're going to be doing online dating, even if the site is quote-unquote free, because there's a lot of fakery going on there. There's a lot of scamming, and they'll just do it for the sake of getting traffic. So I wanted to make this video relatively brief, something to be borne in mind if you are into dating, something to be cautious about. Keep your ears perked, and more importantly, keep your money in your wallet. Everyone take care, and there'll be a video on a very different topic very soon. Bye-bye.